The crystal towers of Valterra Prime sparkled like jewels against the purple sky, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 distant suns. For thousands of years, these beautiful structures had stood as symbols of peace and wisdom throughout the galaxy, but today, explosions painted the sky orange and red as enemy ships tore through the planet's outer defenses. "Hi, Commander." Taishael pressed her 6-fingered hands against the cold viewing window of the command center. Her large compound eyes watched helplessly as another orbital defense platform exploded in a ball of superheated gas. 3,000 Zephyrian defenders vanished in an instant, their crystalline bodies unable to survive the extreme temperatures. The enemy ships looked nothing like the elegant vessels of the Zephyrian coalition, where Zephyrian craft were smooth and curved, like flowing water. These invaders were angular and black, resembling geometric nightmares that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. They had appeared without warning from quantum tunnels, emerging like a swarm of metallic insects with only one purpose: total destruction. "Commander, we have lost 17 more defensive positions," reported Science Officer Velkoth, his normally calm voice trembling with fear. His blue skin had turned pale, and his antenna-like sensory organs drooped with exhaustion. "Our photon lances are having minimal effect on their adaptive armor." Taisho nodded grimly. The Void Ravagers, as intelligence reports called them, were unlike any enemy the peaceful Zephyrians had ever faced. Their ships seemed to learn from each attack, adjusting their defenses with mechanical precision. What worked once never worked twice against these artificial mines that consumed entire star systems for raw materials. "How long until the outer perimeter falls?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would not bring comfort. 12 hours, perhaps less," Velkoth replied quietly. "Our shield harmonics are failing. The enemy's adaptive algorithms have analyzed our defensive patterns." The Zephyrian coalition had been the galaxy's greatest achievement in peaceful cooperation. 47 different species had joined together, sharing knowledge and resources while solving conflicts through discussion rather than violence. Their advanced technology could heal diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia and create energy from the very fabric of space itself. But all their wisdom and scientific advancement meant nothing against an enemy that responded only to superior firepower. Taisho walked through the command center, observing her people as they worked frantically at their stations. These were scientists and philosophers, not soldiers. Their delicate hands had been designed for precise calculations and careful experiments, not for operating weapons of war. Even their most advanced military equipment was built with elegant efficiency rather than raw destructive power. "We cannot win this fight," she admitted to herself, the words feeling like poison in her mind. For the first time in her long life, violence seemed to be the only solution, and her people simply did not understand violence well enough to employ it effectively. Another explosion rocked the command center. Through the viewing window, she could see Ravager boarding pods punching through the hulls of Zephyrian cruisers. The mechanical warriors inside would show no mercy, converting living beings into raw materials for their endless expansion across the galaxy. "Send a message to all coalition worlds," Taishael ordered suddenly. "Tell them to prepare for evacuation. We cannot hold this system much longer." "Commander," interrupted Communications Officer Zephian, his voice filled with desperate hope. "What about the emergency protocols? The galaxy-wide distress signal?" Taisho considered this carefully. The emergency protocols had been established centuries ago, but never used. The idea was simple: broadcast a plea for help to every known civilization in the galaxy, hoping that someone, somewhere, would have the military capability to respond. But most advanced species had evolved beyond warfare, becoming peaceful like the Zephyrians themselves. Those few civilizations that still practiced violence were usually too primitive to pose a threat to something as advanced as the Void Ravagers. "The chances of success are minimal," she said slowly. Most species lack sufficient military technology, and those that possess it are either too distant or too hostile to respond to our plea. But there is one possibility, Velkoth added hesitantly. The quarantined world in the Sol system. Intelligence reports indicate they possess significant military capabilities. Taishel's compound eyes widened in shock. The Deathworld inhabitants, those savage predators. The Galactic Council banned contact with them for good reason. They are violent beyond measure, emerging from a planet so hostile that it breeds only killers. Perhaps, Velkoth replied quietly. That is exactly what we need right now. The command center fell silent, except for the distant sounds of battle. Taishel realized that her choice had become clear: certain extinction at the hands of the Void Ravagers, or possible salvation from beings the galaxy considered monsters. Prepare the emergency transmission, she commanded. Broadcast on all frequencies, in every known language. Tell the galaxy that the Zephyrian Coalition faces complete annihilation. Offer everything we have to anyone willing to help us survive. As the desperate message began its journey across the stars, Taish wondered if she had just made the greatest mistake in galactic history, or its last hope for survival. The underground command center beneath New Sol hummed with activity as hundreds of technicians monitored communications from across the galaxy. The massive facility had been carved deep into the bedrock during the climate wars, designed to survive nuclear strikes and asteroid impacts. Admiral Park Jinsu stood before the main display screen, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of incoming transmissions. At 53 years old, Jinsu had fought in more battles than most humans could imagine. His left arm bore scars from plasma burns received during the Gravity City rebellions, and his right eye had been replaced with a cybernetic implant after a mining accident on Europa. Like most of Earth's military leaders, he had earned his position through survival rather than politics. Sir, we are receiving an emergency transmission on all galactic frequencies, reported Communications Officer Kim Taehan from his station. The young man's fingers moved quickly across his control panel, filtering through the static and interference. The signal is coming from the Zephyrian Coalition in the Andromeda Spiral. Jinsu raised an eyebrow. The Zephyrians were one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, known for their peaceful nature and incredible technology. They were also among the species that had voted to quarantine Earth 40 years ago, calling humans dangerous primitives from a dead world. Play the message, he ordered. The translation systems worked for several minutes before producing clear audio. A female voice, obviously alien but speaking understandable Korean, filled the command center. To any species capable of warfare, the Zephyrian Coalition faces total extinction. We are under attack by an enemy we cannot defeat. We offer all our knowledge, our resources, our friendship to those who would save us from destruction. We are dying. Please help us. The command center fell silent. Jinsu had never heard such desperation in an alien voice before. These were the same beings who had called humans savage killers, now begging those same killers for salvation. Analysis. Lieutenant Park? Jinsu asked his intelligence officer, who happened to be his own daughter. Lieutenant Park Soo-jin looked up from her data screens, her expression serious. The Zephyrians are facing something called the Void Ravagers, sir. Our long-range sensors confirm massive energy signatures in their territory. Whatever is attacking them has already destroyed 12 star systems. Jinsu walked to the strategic display that showed Earth's current military capabilities. The blue hologram revealed the positions of 500 combat vessels scattered throughout the solar system. Each ship represented decades of human engineering, focused on one simple goal: survival through superior firepower. How many ships can we deploy immediately? He asked Captain Lee Minji. His fleet commander. Minji was a veteran of the asteroid belt conflicts. Her small frame concealing muscles developed under Earth's crushing gravity. The entire home defense fleet, sir. 500 vessels ranging from destroyers to dreadnoughts. We can have them ready for quantum tunnel travel within 6 hours. That would leave Earth completely defenseless," warned Defense Minister Choi Hai-young from her seat at the strategy table. "If this is some kind of trap, we could lose everything." Jinsu considered this carefully. Earth had spent 40 years in isolation, building its military strength while the rest of the galaxy ignored them. Human ships were crude compared to alien technology, but they were built like fortresses, where other species designed elegant vessels that relied on shields and maneuverability. Humans created armored monsters capable of absorbing enormous amounts of damage. "Sir," interrupted Engineer Nam Soo-jin from the technical station, "our weapons systems are fundamentally different from standard galactic technology. Most advanced species use energy-based weapons that require sophisticated targeting systems. Our kinetic projectiles and nuclear warheads are much simpler but potentially more effective against enemies, adapted to fight elegant opponents." Jin smiled grimly. Human weapons were considered primitive by galactic standards, but they had one significant advantage: they were unpredictable. While alien civilizations had spent millennia perfecting energy weapons and defensive shields, humans had focused on making things explode with maximum efficiency. "What about the political implications?" asked Foreign Affairs Advisor Oh Ji-hoon. "If we intervened successfully, we could force the Galactic Council to recognize Earth as a legitimate member of interstellar society. And if we fail," added Minister Choi, "humanity dies in space, far from home, fighting for people who despise us." Jinsu looked around the command center at the faces of his staff. These were people who had grown up in the ruins of Earth's environmental collapse, who had learned to fight in radioactive storms and crushing atmospheric pressure. They were survivors, every one of them, shaped by a world that tried to kill them from birth. "Prepare the fleet for immediate departure," he ordered. "Send a message to all ship commanders. We are going to war to save aliens who have never shown us kindness. They think we are monsters from a death world. Today, we prove that sometimes the galaxy needs monsters." As alarms began sounding throughout the command center, signaling the largest military deployment in human history, Jinsu wondered if they were making a terrible mistake. But he also knew that this might be humanity's only chance to prove they deserved a place among the stars. The Terran Expeditionary Force would launch within hours, carrying 40,000 of Earth's finest warriors, toward an unknown enemy in distant space. The human fleet dropped out of quantum space above Veltara Prime, like a collection of metal asteroids, their dark holes scarred and angular against the beautiful crystal formations floating in the planet's orbit. Captain Lee Minji stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Tyagukji, watching the battle unfolding before them through the main view screen. Elegant Zephyrian ships moved like dancing butterflies around the geometric black vessels of the Void Ravager. The alien defenders fired streams of pure energy that painted rainbow colors across space, but their beautiful weapons seemed to barely scratch the enemy's adaptive armor. For every Ravager ship that exploded, 3 Zephyrian vessels shattered, like glass sculptures. "Incoming transmission from the planetary surface," announced Communications Officer Kim Tae-han, his voice tense with excitement. They were about to make first contact with an alien species, something humans had dreamed about for centuries. The main screen flickered and filled with the image of High Commander Tia Chao. Her compound eyes were larger than human heads, reflecting the light like multifaceted jewels. Her skin was pale blue and seemed to shimmer with an inner glow. When she spoke, her voice was musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Unknown vessels," she said, her translation device converting her words into Korean. "Please identify yourselves. Are you responding to our distress signal?" Admiral Jinsu stepped forward, his weathered human face appearing on Taishel's screen. The Zephyrian commander's eyes widened in shock. She had expected another elegant alien species, perhaps with advanced energy weapons and sophisticated shield technology. Instead, she was looking at something that resembled the predators from her people's worst nightmares. Jinsu's forward-facing eyes marked him as a hunter, his muscular build suggesting strength adapted for high-gravity environments. Scars covered his visible skin, and his cybernetic eye glowed with artificial light. Behind him, Taishel could see other humans moving with the controlled aggression of natural killers. "I am Admiral Park Jinsu of the Terran Expeditionary Force," he said simply. "We received your call for help. We are here to fight." Taishel struggled to process this information. These were the quarantined Deathworld inhabitants that the Galactic Council had forbidden contact with for 4 decades. According to intelligence reports, they were savage primitives who solved problems through violence rather than intelligent discussion. "You came," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "but you are predators. Your species is classified as extremely dangerous." Jinsu's smile was grim, but not unkind. "Yes, we are dangerous. Right now, that is exactly what you need." The cultural shock became immediately apparent as the human fleet moved into battle formation. Where Zephyrian ships were smooth and graceful, human vessels looked like floating fortresses covered in weapon batteries and armor plating. Instead of elegant energy weapons, the human ships bristled with kinetic cannons, missile launchers, and devices that the Zephyrians could not even identify. "What are those cylindrical objects attached to their ships?" asked Science Officer Velkoth, pointing at the human fleet through his viewing scope. "Those appear to be nuclear warheads," replied Weapons Specialist Kathra, her voice filled with horror. "They use atomic explosions as weapons. Such crude technology should be ineffective against advanced shielding." But as they watched, the human ships opened fire with devastating results. Streams of magnetically accelerated metal projectiles tore through Ravager formations that had easily deflected sophisticated energy beams. The enemy's adaptive shields, designed to counter elegant alien weapons, crumpled under the impact of simple tungsten slugs, moving at significant fractions of light. Speed. Captain Minji ordered her Marines to prepare for boarding actions, something that shocked the Zephyrian observers. While other species fought wars at safe distances with energy weapons, humans were preparing to board enemy vessels and fight hand-to-hand in the vacuum of space. "They are going inside the enemy ships," Taishel said in disbelief. "In zero gravity? Without atmosphere, wearing only mechanical suits." Sergeant Oji-hoon led the first boarding party through the twisted corridors of a damaged Ravager vessel. His team moved with practiced efficiency, using plasma cutters and explosive charges to clear blocked passages. The artificial gravity had failed, and the corridors were filled with deadly radiation. But the human soldiers seemed unaffected by conditions that would kill most galactic species within minutes. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as these Death warriors treated impossible environmental conditions as minor inconveniences. When asked how they could survive in such hostile situations, Corporal Bei Sung-ho simply replied through the communication link, "This is easier than fighting in Earth's deep ocean trenches. At least here we do not have to worry about pressure crushing our suits." As the battle continued, Taishel began to understand that her people had completely misjudged these beings. They were not mindless savages who enjoyed violence for its own sake. Every human casualty was carefully reported and mourned. Every tactical decision was calculated not for glory or conquest, but for maximum effectiveness with minimum loss of life. When Lieutenant Choi Hyjin sacrificed herself to destroy a command node, her squad did not break formation or seek revenge. They simply added her loss to their motivation and continued fighting with even greater determination. "They fight like demons," observed Velkoth quietly, "but they grieve like angels." Chief Engineer Nam Soo-jin crouched beneath the massive railgun assembly on the Taegukji, her hands covered in grease as she made final adjustments to the targeting systems. Around her, human technicians worked frantically to modify their weapons, based on battlefield observations. The elegant alien technology had failed to stop the Void Ravagers, but Soo-jin had noticed something important about the enemy's defensive systems. "Captain Minji," she called through her communication device, "I need to speak with you immediately. I think I have found their weakness. Minji arrived in the engineering bay within minutes, her uniform torn from a recent boarding action. Her face was streaked with sweat and alien blood, but her eyes remained focused and alert. What did you discover, Chief? Sujin pulled up a holographic display showing the structure of Ravager shield technology. Their defensive systems are incredibly advanced, designed to deflect and absorb energy-based weapons. They can adapt to photon lances, plasma streams, and particle beams within seconds of first contact. But look at this data from our kinetic strikes. The hologram showed human railgun projectiles punching through Ravager shields like bullets. Through paper. The enemy's adaptive systems, built to counter sophisticated energy weapons, were completely unprepared for simple metal slugs accelerated to extreme velocities by magnetic fields. Their shields cannot adapt to kinetic impacts, because there is nothing to adapt to, Sujin explained excitedly. A tungsten rod moving at point to light speed is just physics. No energy signature to analyze, no frequency to counter, just mass times velocity equals dead alien machines. Minji smiled grimly. Signal all ships. Full kinetic barrage. Target the largest enemy vessels first. Across the human fleet, railguns that had been considered primitive by galactic standards suddenly became the most effective weapons in space. The Taeogji's main battery fired a stream of metal projectiles that tore through a Ravager dreadnought like it was made of tissue paper. Other human ships followed suit. Their crude but devastating weapons, carving holes through enemy formations that elegant alien technology had failed to scratch. The Zephyrians watched in amazement as the tide of battle suddenly shifted. High Commander, Taishul stood in her command center, observing human tactics that defied everything she understood about civilized warfare. Where her people fought with precision and elegance, these Deathworld warriors used brute force and overwhelming firepower. How are they achieving such success with primitive technology? Asked Science Officer Velkov, his compound eyes reflecting the explosions visible through the viewing windows. I do not think their technology is primitive, Taishul replied. Slowly, I think it is simply different. They have developed weapons based on their hostile environment, rather than trying to avoid conflict entirely. The battle reached its climax when Lieutenant Choi Haijin led a desperate assault on the Ravager mothership. Her squad of 20 Marines had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. The enemy's command vessel was heavily defended, surrounded by smaller ships and protected by overlapping shield systems that even human kinetic weapons could not penetrate. We need to get inside their shields, Haijin explained to her team as they prepared for launch. Once we are through their outer defenses, we can plant nuclear charges directly on their hull. The assault pods launched from the Taeogji like bullets from a gun, using their small size and high speed to slip through gaps in the Ravager defensive grid. Half the pods were destroyed by enemy fire before reaching their target. But Haijin's team managed to breach the mothership's outer hull. Inside the enemy vessel, the human Marines found themselves fighting in a nightmare environment. The corridors were filled with poisonous gases that would kill most species instantly. The artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, sometimes crushing the soldiers against the floor, other times leaving them floating helplessly in zero. Mechanical defenders attacked from every direction with weapons that fired superheated plasma and corrosive acids. But the human soldiers had grown up on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had trained in Earth's radioactive deserts, fought in the crushing depths of the ocean, and survived in the frozen wasteland of Antarctica. The hostile environment inside the Ravager ship was just another challenge to overcome. Nuclear charges are in position, reported Sergeant Park Dongyan, through the communication system. We have maybe 5 minutes before the enemy adapts to our presence. All teams fall back to extraction points, ordered Haijin, but she knew they would never make it out alive. The enemy had already sealed the corridors behind them, trapping the human soldiers inside their own vessel. Tell my family I died protecting innocent people, she said quietly into her transmitter. Then she activated the nuclear charges. The Ravager mothership disappeared in a flash of light, brighter than a star. The explosion was so powerful that human ships 30 kilometers away had to raise their shields to protect against the radiation burst. But when the light faded, the geometric nightmare that had been consuming star systems across the galaxy was nothing more than expanding debris. The remaining Ravager vessels, suddenly leaderless and confused, began retreating toward the edge of the solar system. The human fleet pursued them relentlessly, using their crude but effective weapons to destroy every enemy ship they could catch. For the first time in months, the skies above Valterra Prime were clear of enemy vessels. The debris field around Valterra Prime sparkled like a constellation of broken stars, the remains of Void Ravager ships mixing with the wreckage of human and Zephyrian vessels. Admiral Park Jinsu stood on the bridge of the Tayaguki watching. Salvage teams searched through the floating metal for survivors. The silence of space seemed heavier now, filled with the memory of 40,000 human voices that would never speak again. Captain Lee Minji approached him with a datapad showing the final casualty reports. Her uniform was clean now, but her eyes carried the weight of too many friends lost in battle. Final count, sir. 39,812 confirmed dead. Another 1,000 wounded, but expected to recover. Jinsu nodded slowly. Nearly 40,000 of Earth's finest warriors had died protecting aliens they had never met, fighting an enemy that posed no direct threat to their home world. In the old days, such losses might have been considered a military disaster, but today, they felt like something else entirely. Incoming transmission from the planetary surface, announced Communications Officer Kim Tae. High Commander, Taishel requests permission to come aboard. Permission granted, Jinsu replied. Prepare the main docking bay for alien visitors. An hour later, the Zephyrian leader materialized in the ship's conference room, accompanied by several members of her command staff. Up close, Jinsu could see that her compound eyes were filled with what looked like tears, though he was not sure if her species was capable of crying in the human sense. Admiral, she began, her musical voice carrying notes of profound sadness. I do not possess words in any language to express what your people have done for us. 40,000 humans died to save a civilization that had rejected and feared them for decades. Jinsu gestured for the aliens to sit at the conference table, though he was not sure their anatomy would find human furniture comfortable. They died doing what humans do best, Commander, protecting innocent life from those who would destroy it. Science Officer Velkoth leaned forward, his pale blue skin shimmering under the artificial lights. We have analyzed your military tactics and technology. Your weapon systems are far more effective than our intelligence reports suggested. How did a species we classified as primitive develop such devastating warfare capabilities? Captain Minji smiled grimly. You made the same mistake the Void Ravagers did. You assumed that elegant technology is always superior to simple solutions. Our weapons work because they are based on basic physics rather than sophisticated energy manipulation. But there is something else, Taishel added quietly. Your people fought with a determination we have never seen before. Even when facing certain death, they did not retreat or surrender. Lieutenant Choi Hyjin could have escaped from the enemy mothership, but she chose to stay and complete her mission. Jinsu looked out through the conference room's viewing window at the distant blue glow of Valterra Prime. Earth taught us that survival requires sacrifice. Our world tried to kill us from the moment we were born, so we learned to fight for every breath, every day of life. When we see innocent beings threatened with extinction, we cannot simply stand by and watch. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Galactic Council. The holographic image of Chancellor Mordith appeared above the conference table, his elegant features showing surprise at seeing humans and Zephyrians sitting together peacefully. High Commander Tischel, the Chancellor began, we have received reports of massive energy signatures in your system. What is the status of the Void Ravager threat? The threat has been eliminated, Chancellor Tyshell replied formally. The human fleet from the Sol system responded to our distress call and destroyed the enemy forces. Chancellor Mordeth's expression shifted from surprise to shock. The quarantined Deathworld species, we specifically forbade contact with those dangerous primitives. Those dangerous primitives, Tyshell said with steel in her voice, saved our entire civilization while the Galactic Council debated proper procedures. I formally request that Earth be granted full membership in our alliance, with all rights and privileges of a founding member. The political implications were staggering. For 40 years, humanity had been isolated from galactic society, treated as too violent and unpredictable to join civilized species. Now, the most peaceful race in the galaxy was sponsoring them for full membership based on their military prowess. This is highly irregular, Chancellor Mordeth protested. The quarantine protocols exist for good reason. These beings are proven to be aggressive and unstable. Perhaps, Jinsu interjected calmly, the galaxy needs some aggressive and unstable beings. Your elegant civilizations were helpless against the Void Ravagers. Sometimes peace can only be protected by those willing to fight for it. Over the following weeks, the political debate raged across the galaxy. Some species supported Earth's admission to the galactic community, arguing that their military capabilities were clearly needed for common defense. Others maintained that humans were too dangerous to trust with advanced technology and interstellar influence. The issue was finally settled when the Vazefrian coalition announced they would withdraw from the Galactic Council if Earth was not granted full membership. Other species that had been saved by human intervention in smaller conflicts added their support. And eventually even the most reluctant council members agreed. Captain Minji's final log entry recorded the moment when Admiral Jinsu received official notification of Earth's acceptance into galactic society. But the real victory, she noted, was not political recognition. It was the knowledge that humanity had proven itself worthy of the stars through sacrifice rather than conquest. The human fleet began its journey home, leaving behind a galaxy that finally understood what Deathworld warriors could accomplish when they fought not for glory, but for the simple right of others to exist.